friends, and welcome back to the Wardenburn Reads YouTube channel. My name is Emily and I am here today to talk about a book that I just finished reading today. I'll just go ahead and show it to you. Middlemarch by George Eliot. I had to go and pull out my fancy, pretty copy of it. It was a little bit damaged, you can kind of see. I got this copy when I was on vacation with my husband and his family like 4 years ago, maybe a little bit more than that. And I bought it because it's beautiful and I had been wanting to read Middlemarch for quite some time. And I have finally managed to do so. It's definitely a bit more damaged. I'm wondering now if something may have happened to it, if we might have gotten water on it. I mean, it looks like water damage, but anyway, I don't think it was like that when I purchased it, so probably my fault. But I finished it, and I just want to talk about it. I want to talk about it and kind of talk about a few things with it and what I thought about reading the book and if I would recommend it and just all those sorts of things. I'm expecting this to be a shorter video, but I will say I am planning to talk in detail, or not in detail, I am planning to talk about things that happen at the later parts of the book, even on to the end of the book. So if you haven't read it and you don't want any spoilers, I would recommend not watching the rest of the video. But if you have read it and you want to hear my thoughts on it, continue watching. Yeah, so it's about Middlemarch. I think that that's one of the biggest things, and I always thought that this was supposed to be based on a specific character, and then now that I've read it, I realized that it is truly supposed to be like just based on Middlemarch, the village, that there are multiple main characters, if you will, and different sections of the book focus on different characters. I think overall, my initial kind of gut reaction is that it was good. It was a heavier book, I think, than I have been reading lately. It is certainly not a Cranford type of a book or a cozy romance type of a book. There's a lot more depth and real life to it. Like, I will say, I read it on my Kindle, and I got about 65% of the way through, and I realized how much more of the book I still had to go. On my Kindle, I think it said that there was something like 12,000 pages or something. It was so much, and I got to about like 8,000 pages in, and I was like, good grief, like, But then I will say the last probably 30% of the book, I just flew through it. I probably read most of that this morning. So overall, I did really like it. I think I don't really do star ratings, but if I were a star rating type of person, I would probably put it around the 4-star mark, just because I think a 5-star book for me is a book that I will love rereading. I think rereading is just one of my greatest joys in life, and or in my reading life. And if a book is a 5-star read, that means I want to reread it at some point. Middlemarch is a book that I could see myself rereading, but not anytime soon. I think it's something that I could read like maybe every few years. I don't know. It was good. Overall, I enjoyed it. I think that there are certain aspects of it that it made me really stop and think, and that was nice. I'm not complaining about that. Dorothea Brooke is one of the main characters, and she gets married to Mr. Casaubon, who is quite a bit older than her, and it was really interesting to read and watch their marriage dynamics, and also tragic in a way, because it was like you got to watch like the first, I wouldn't even call it love, because I don't think she married him for love. She married him for duty and for what she felt like it was going to be, like this was going to be her purpose in life, sort of a thing. And so you kind of watch that like disenchantment happening, and so that was a bit tragic, and yeah, just tragic and really sad, and especially as he got to the end of his life and he was sick, and just the jealous and selfish and very human, I guess, thoughts and feelings and opinions started coming more and more to the surface, and just how you know, it was a mercy that he died so early on into their marriage because of how downtrodden he would have been, like how downtrodden he would have made Dorothea to be. And that it was really a mercy for her that she didn't have to stay chained to him for the rest of her life. Which is really, really sad. Like, it's really tragic, like I said, that like that's the case. And it was her, she was really young, she was like 20 when she marries him, and so it was like that whole thing where it was like he was constantly like telling her that she didn't really know anything and that she just needed to let him tell her what to think about different things and stuff. Like, it was just so like degrading, and it was really sad. So there's that bit, and then you're like relieved that Mr. Casaubon has finally died, and then it like shifts throughout there where it's talking about Dr. Lydgate, who's a young doctor full of all these hopes and dreams and plans and whatnot to make all these medical discoveries, and then he falls in love with Rosamund Vincy, and it's another tragic marriage because I think one of the things that Middlemarch did so clearly was it showed the stark contrast between a marriage where the husband and wife are a team and they are working together and they have that open communication with each other and they are there to support each other, versus the marriage where there's so much selfishness and lack of consideration for the other person. And it was oh so clear in the Lydgate's marriage that Rosamund was a bad wife. Like, she was a bad, selfish wife. And that because Dr. Lydgate married her, it meant the sacrifice of all that he had hoped for in his life, because she wasn't a helpmeet. She was a ball and chain. And how tragic that was, and how disrespectful she was towards him, and doing whatever she wanted to do without any consideration for him whatsoever. And just their whole relationship, that was part of why when I got to like 64% of the way through, it was like a lot of like their marriage relationship stuff where she's not pulling her weight and she completely disregards him and risks her life and tragically, you know, causes the death of their unborn baby by disobeying him, and just all of this stuff where it was just so tragic, contrasting their marriage versus Mr. and Mrs. Garth. I can't remember Mrs. Garth's name. I know it was Caleb Garth. That, you know, they were poor and they had to really work hard to provide for their family, and that they were just some of the most honorable and the best people, like the best people sort of a thing, and that their marriage was one of such respect that when Mrs. Garth ends up telling something to Fred Vincy, who is Rosamund Vincy's brother, that she thinks her husband might disagree with, it kind of slipped out. Like, she wasn't trying to be malicious or anything. She immediately that night goes and confesses to him, if you will. Like, she considers it confessing, but I think it was also, that's just an old language term. She told him what she had said and stuff, and that there was that openness in their relationship that was just such a key point to building a strong marriage, and that all of their children were blessed by having that strong marriage. And it was just, I think that was one of the things that stood out to me the most, was just contrasting the good and right ways of approaching a relationship versus the selfish and inconsiderate and childish immaturity that was portrayed by Rosamund. And then finally, at closer to the end of the book, when Will Ladislaw lashes out at her and she has to like kind of watch her pride come crumbling around her ears. And frankly, I was thrilled when that happened. Like, I'm so glad that somebody finally told her that she's not that nice of a person. Like, she always has this like puffed up vanity that what she does must be right because she's portraying good manners. And it was so clear that there's a stark difference between good manners and doing what's right. I really enjoyed that part where Will just like yells at her and he kind of feels guilty about it afterwards, but I'm like, no, she needed it. And it was sad too, because like even in the final, I think it was just called like finale, the last chapter, where it kind of does a wrap up of most of the different characters, and it like not no, I guess it did. It wrapped everything up well. I loved the ending. The ending was fantastic because it ties all those ends together, and it was really nice. But it just shows that, again, Rosamund never really repented of her, of the damage that she caused to Dr. Lydgate, and she more just viewed it as him being offensive to her. And it was just icky. Just like, oh, God, protect me from being that type of a woman. Like, please. Ugh. So overall, I did really enjoy it. I did really like it. It was good. I think it, like I said, it made me stop and think a lot. And especially in the whole thing with the marriages and stuff, where it was just like, that is something that I want to be so cautious about, is I don't want to be a millstone around my husband's neck. I want to be there to support and help him achieve what he needs in life. And if he needs to work really hard to support our family, that I can encourage him in that, rather than being like, ugh, why do you have to work so much? And so that was good. I really did like that. I liked the story of Mary Garth and Fred Vincy. I think that theirs was a really sweet and redemptive story, and just all of the people around that. I really want to know what happened to Mr. Fairbrother. I really want him to have found some lovely young woman to marry, and for them to have been happy, and to fill the vicarage with a large, happy family. But he's kind of ignored. George Eliot didn't say what happens to him in the finale, and I was a little bit disappointed with that, because he was also in love with Mary Garth, and so he wanted to marry her. But of course, she was in love with Fred, so they get married, and oh, it was so nice in a lot of ways, and really sad in a lot of ways. And I think that it did a really good job, I guess, in portraying life, because life is so full of that balance of good and bad. So it was really great in that. I definitely feel like I need to go read a happy book now with a good marriage in it. But yeah, and when Dorothea and Will finally are able to get together and be happy and married, and oh, you're just so thrilled for them. And in a way, I do wish that part had been a little bit more fleshed out, that there had been a little bit more about that, just because I feel like it spent so much of the book portraying how sad and hard Dorothea had it. And then the blip where she and Will finally are like, yes, we're going to get married despite all opposition and stuff. That felt like so short. And you just wanted there to be more, to just be like, yeah. And I did really appreciate the fact that there was that aspect in the finale where it was like, you know, they were happily married, like despite the fact that she had gone down in the world to marry him and degraded herself, that they were so happy. And I think that that's another thing that's really interesting about the book, is it portrays that, you know, money and position do not equal happiness. That there's a lot of that is just pomp and circumstance, and it has no bearing on what really makes for a happy home. I thought that was really interesting. And then of course there's Mr. Bulstrode, with all of his pompous, like, religious cant that he is preaching to everyone, only for it to come out that he's just as much of a villainous human as most of us are. Maybe a little bit more so, but yeah, his whole storyline was really interesting, because there wasn't really any final redemption to that. He just kept trying to cover up his sin, and he was more afraid of the embarrassment of being found out wrong than that he had been wrong in the first place. So that was kind of interesting. Again, I think it's kind of real to life. I think a lot of us are that way, that we would rather, you know, not repent for what we've done wrong and just try and hide it. So, yeah. I think that's about all I've got to say about it. I really am so glad that I have finally read it. It feels like such an achievement, and it really only took me a couple of weeks, and that was also with reading other books. So yeah, I think I would recommend reading it, but don't expect it to be a Elizabeth Gaskell or Jane Austen or light, fluffy sort of a book. It's got a lot of heaviness to it, and there's happy moments in it, but it's a lot of real life. Yeah. So, I would love to know your thoughts on Middlemarch. Have you read it? Did you like it? What were your favorite characters? What were your favorite stories? Are there any books that you have read that portray really great marriages where the husband and wife are like decent to each other and there's not like the whole plotting for affairs or trying to find somebody else or whatever it is? Are there books that you like that have really good marriages in them? I would love to know if there are, because I've been kind of wanting that. Like, I want to read books that have the married people living life together and it's not just the first young love sort of a thing. So if you have any recommendations like that, I would love to hear it. But that's all for now. Thank you so much as always for watching, and I will see you on the next one. Bye!